Okay, I was gonna have them all situated while I introduce them. Okay, so, but you can do that from here. No, I was gonna have them seated as I introduce them one at a time. But I can change it. And so, sorry. You ready? Yeah. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for the Young Black Women Challenging Racism, Leading with Their Voices and Actions. This is a panel presentation, an engagement time that we will have in connection with the March 21st date for the elimination of racial discrimination. I want to begin with a land acknowledgement and people's affirmation. We hold this session on this site and virtual. I acknowledge that we are located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And we acknowledge them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which the Mi'kmaq, Walastoqiyik, and the Passamaquoddy peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and the nations and established the rules for what was the ongoing relationship between nations. We are all treaty people. We acknowledge the historical and contemporary presence of people of African descent. We offer this people's acknowledgement and solidarity with the indigenous people of Turtle Island in the efforts and deliberate intention toward decolonization. African Nova Scotians have existed and persisted on the traditional land of the Mi'kmaq for more than 400 years. Our significant presence and contributions have shaped the existence of Nova Scotia. We are resilient, brave, and spiritual, and express pride in our ancestors on whose shoulders we stand. This acknowledgement brings with it a call to action to reconcile the harm acted upon African Nova Scotians, a distinct people, and the Mi'kmaq people. So again, welcome. I want to acknowledge that we are in Eid Baraka, and so at this time we acknowledge that and join in that celebration that comes after Ramadan. So I wanted to give you just a brief overview of how we came here to be, and then I will be inviting up our moderator and the panelists and be able to really get into the juicy part of our evening. So the young Black women challenging racism, leading with their voices and actions, is part of the recognition of the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, and it is hosted by Dalmore Buddy Day Learning Institute through the project that is known as Together We Rise. The Together We Rise project is contextual, known, and that it is in collaboration, as you see there, with partners to deliver the Black Cultural Center here, the Nova Scotia Advisory Council on the Status of Women. This event was created to center the voices and leadership of Black women who are working within political, public, and community spaces. While the progress has been made, significant gaps in representation and equity exist. These gaps are often shaped by overlapping experiences of racism, sexism, and other systemic barriers that continue to influence who has access to leadership and decision-making spots. This evening is an opportunity to hear directly from Black women who are navigating these realities in their own work and leadership journey. Through conversation and reflection, we hope to explore both the challenges that persist and the strategies that are helping communities move forward. I also want to acknowledge, as we have talked about, on whose shoulders we stand in terms of moving forward, I want to acknowledge Her Honor May Annie Francis, who is here with us this evening. Thank you. And I also want to acknowledge Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard, who has been, is part of the steering committee for Together We Rise, and has also been supporting with the logistics here as well. So thank you both to these women leaders who are present and continue to be our role models. Our goal tonight is to create space for honest dialogue, shared learning, and collective reflection on what meaningful representation and leadership looks like. So as I had noted earlier, we are present in this physical space at the Black Cultural Center of Nova Scotia. We also have online and the live stream, and that will be available for viewing post this event on YouTube as well. Thank you for being here and for being part of this important conversation. So this time I would like to invite our panelists and moderator to join me here on stage. Monica Njoku is a community connector who believes in the power of holistic leadership. She is serving this evening for us in the role of panel moderator. She currently works in community and industry engagement for the province of Nova Scotia and is also completing Dalhousie University's Afrocentric Bachelor of Social Work program, the first of its kind in Canada. Congratulations, Monica. Monica's professional background spans event planning, marketing, digital communications, and building inclusive workplaces. Please join me in welcoming the panel and Monica. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Let's get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's panel discussion. Thank you to DBDLI for putting this event together, the Black Cultural Center for hosting us, and to our friends at Opus for feeding us. Those of you who are at home, you missed out on some good food. Yeah. So as Sylvia said, I am Monica Njoku, and I'm the moderator for today's conversation. Hello to our friends online. So here's how tonight's going to work. I'm going to introduce our super fab panel, and y'all are going to hold your applause and cheers until I've read all 4 of their bios. And at that point, you can clap and cheer to your heart's delight, and then we'll dive into the conversation. At the end of our panel discussion, we'll have about 15 minutes for Q&A from the audience, and that'll be a wrap. Does that sound good to everybody? All right, let's get started. I have so much paper. I love paper. Okay. So our first panelist is a 6th-generation African Nova Scotian from Lucasville. Shanae Parsons Simmons is a visionary leader at the intersection of social work, education, and racial justice. With degrees from Dalhousie University and St. Francis Xavier University, her expertise includes strategic planning, facilitation, report writing, and public sector engagement, supporting organizations to build equitable systems and inform leadership. Shanae is chair of the Black Girls Gather, Shanae is chair of Black Girls Gather, and a national advisor. Right. I really should. I'm on that board as well, so I should know how to say it. Shanae is chair of Black Girls Gather and a national advisor on the federal online safety bill, with reappointment beginning April of 2026. Recognized among Canada's top 100 accomplished Black women in 2024, she is committed to advancing racial equity and community empowerment. Hey, Shanae.
Hey.
Our next panelist is a strong feminist. Lily Brigham Gale has been inspired to pursue graduate-level research around maternal and women's health. Lily is shining a light on a traditionally understudied field, which has led to centuries of health inequities, especially for Black women. A recent graduate of an honors degree in biology and neuroscience, Lily works as a research assistant and laboratory teaching assistant. A natural creator, Lily loves to bake, paint, and craft social media posts. She strives to be an advocate for women's healthcare equity and health research equality, as well as a supporter of women in STEM fields. Welcome, Lily. Our next panelist is a proud daughter of East Preston, Nova Scotia. Nicole Johnson grew up in a large, close-knit family that helped shape her strong sense of community and service. Deeply connected to the history and resilience of the Preston area, Nicole is passionate about advocacy and community engagement. Too much paper. She currently serves as a community specialist with Halifax Public Libraries, supporting residents across the Preston Township through programs, resources, and services tailored to community needs. Rooted in her heritage and guided by a commitment to uplifting others, Nicole continues to work toward the well-being and growth of her community. Hi, Nicole. Last but not least, our final panelist is a poet and former Youth Poet Laureate from the Halifax Regional Municipality. Damini Owoyiga is a freelance journalist with CBC Main Street and a member of the HRM Youth Advisory Council. She's been recognized with multiple awards, and in August 2025, she delivered her first TEDx talk on the power of creativity, becoming the youngest TEDx Argyle speaker at the age of 18. Damini is studying journalism at King's and is part of the Being Black in Canada 2025 cohort. Presented by Netflix, the program is dedicated to amplifying the voice of emerging Black filmmakers. Y'all, please give it up for our panelists.
I know, me and Lily got to talk afterwards.
So impressive, right? Okay, my first question is for all of you. What does leadership mean to you, and when did you first realize that you were already leading? Who would like to go first?
We just jumping in?
Yeah, but don't forget to speak into the microphone now.
For me, I thought really deeply and intentionally about this question because there's so many experiences I think that I can draw from that resonate with many people that are in this space, but also how I show up in community. So when I think about leadership, I think about it as a commitment to community. So no matter what space or environment I may be in, community is at the forefront of my decision making, thinking about seeking out opportunities on where I can make a difference. So in my current place of work, that could look like identifying policy gaps, sitting on committees. And when I started thinking about viewing myself as a leader, that also took some deep reflection, because to me, leadership isn't always about being a specific role or specific position. It's how you embody values and how you stay true to yourself, your authentic self, bringing your whole self, and creating a pathway for those that are coming next. And so when I think back on being a leader, I'll say, I started noticing when people would come to me for advice or support and guidance, believing in my ideas or the thoughts that I may have. So again, I'll just say that when I think about leadership, it's a commitment to community, but also to those who are coming next, behind me. Thanks.
Thank you, Shanae. Who would like to go next?
I guess I'll go next.
All right.
I'll put it this way. Hello, everyone. I guess for me, leadership isn't about titles or positions. It's more about responsibility, about recognize who we are in our community. Sorry, I'll get closer. Can we hear me now? Okay. Recognizing who we are and how we show up in community. Because that can open doors, open other channels for other women, other young girls to use their voice. Leadership also means to me about, just stepping up to challenge the systems that weren't built for us in mind. And, sometimes it can be uncomfortable to use your voice. But regardless, who else is going to do that for us if we don't do it for ourselves, or take a stand, or, challenge those systems. So that's leadership. So stepping up into leadership, coming into your own. And I've had a lot of people prior to me, aunties and mothers and, other community leaders to look up to say, well, if they can do it, surely I can, right? Because it can be scary, but it's not a fear, it's a reverence of doing the right thing. And I guess realize this, if I can refer to my notes here, that as people who are stepping into leadership or coming into the idea of leadership, we take on the concerns of our community because we grew up in that. We feel those growing pains, but also that we fill in the gaps. We follow those who have come before us. So I take pride in that. I always say I'm a daughter of the village, and so, everybody's feeding me, and I take strength from that. So stepping up to leadership, when you don't realize you're a leader, you just do what needs to be done. That gives a sense of pride for me.
I think you're next, Lily. She handed that microphone to you very confident.
Thank you. Oh, I'm loving everyone's answers so far. It's really making me, even right now, sitting here, keep reflecting on what leadership means to me with your input. So thank you. When I reflected on leadership, I thought about what leadership that I have experienced from other people as well. And I think that it's really about empowering and guiding rather than just necessarily dictating what people need to be doing. And I think that's what's been most impactful for me. And helping people feel like they can rely on that support. And I also love thinking about it as an opportunity for you to step up and do things that are difficult, but might be difficult, even more difficult for other people. And if I can be in this position, then I can take those things on, then I'm happy to. So thinking about it as a form of guidance and an opportunity to empower people and take on things when I'm in an opportunity to do so. That's what I think about for leadership. And even starting in small roles, once I felt like I could take on some sense of leadership, then I just went towards that, and I've been seeking those opportunities out.
Yeah, I totally agree with all the points that have been stated so far. You guys really addressed the points really well. For me, I would say as a creative and a creator, leadership for me is creating opportunity for people to come into spaces and find their own voice. I really believe in people being able to lead projects, to be able to come up with ideas. I feel like leadership is also about identifying a gap or an issue within your community and being like, okay, how can we step forward to improve this or change this or make it better? I definitely feel like I've been able to embody leadership as well this year through my position as Black Student Ambassador at King's. Being the first ever Black Student Ambassador at King's, it has its weight, but it also has its benefits and its positives, because in the history of King's has a fairly white history, which they're working to change. So I think being able to be in that role and be part of that change has been really meaningful to me. And I hope to be able to continue forth in that role to support community and to continue to try and be the best leader I can be while taking into account the voices of the people around me.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, that was really great. And I love what someone said, Shanae, I think it was you, about like this holistic piece. And I think for me, like, it's about and just being able to step into who you are and step forward in that positionality, because you create space, like you've all been saying, for somebody else to come in behind you and to step into who they are. All right, so my first official question, Demini, is for you. So how do race, ability, class, gender, intersectionalities intersect in your experiences? And how do those layers shape how you show up as a leader?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say I stand between multiple intersections, being the child of Nigerian immigrants, being born in Nova Scotia, also having ADHD, being neurodivergent, growing up in a Muslim and Christian household. Those multiple different perspectives allow me to have the perspectives of different people. So I can see from different perspectives and understand different issues that someone who might not have those experiences would understand. I would also say, like, the important part of being able to lead with those perspectives or without those perspectives in terms of listening to people and their experiences. Even if you don't have their experiences, there's things that you can learn from them to understand when you're choosing to do things, or when you're in roles where you have the opportunity to change things for people. You always have to remember what people have said or stated or the experiences people have to make sure that you do your best in that position of leadership.
Awesome, thank you. Shanae, you're next. So what structural barriers are making it harder for young Black women to access leadership spaces in Nova Scotia?
So I think this is something that can resonate with practically everybody in this space, but the biggest one that has been for me, and that I also see repeating itself with other individuals, is recognizing that our ideas of leadership itself are rooted in Eurocentric norms. So leadership is defined in ways that don't always reflect Black women, Black people. Our ideas, our way of being more collaborative, reflective, and relational. All of those pieces sometimes are minimized when we are in leadership roles and aren't always necessarily understood. So that also adds, a barrier to mentorship opportunities, to positional roles, because if you're leading in unique ways that aren't always valued, they may not see you as valuable being in those spaces. So that has been a struggle, I'd say, especially for myself. I think I talked about it being authentic and true, and being true to myself, showing up authentically. And just because, when you think about, again, back to my original statement that I'd said, when you think about people who have made it into these roles, sometimes they forget. They leave the community behind, and the reason why they are in those roles is because of community, because you were, bold, because you stay true, and then sometimes we lose that when we get into these positions and forget those behind. And so, yeah, a big barrier for me is definitely this idea of how do you lead and what that looks like from a Eurocentric perspective. And we don't always align with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting you brought that up, because as I was listening to you all talk about leadership, I kept thinking about Afrocentricity, which is very much about communal healing.
We all echoed it in the first
Everybody
thing.
said it, right?
How we lead, nothing was more,
Nothing was
rooted in
individual.
traditional ways of leading.
Exactly. It was all very collective, all very communal, and we are constantly having to buck up against a system that's very individualistic.
Exactly.
And I think your point about not being recognized, like, how does that shape how you're able to, the positionality you take in organizations, and how much influence you can have when people don't see the value in how you are leading. So
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, Nicole, my darling, next question is for you. So leadership is often thought as happening in formal political institutional spaces. How are you redefining leadership in community spaces?
back to what I said originally at the beginning, sorry, thank you, is that it doesn't require a title. It requires you to step up. And, you know, I can speak to the experience that I had in stepping up to politics. I didn't do that because it was a cushiony, cozy kind of position to. I see the need. I see over years and years that my community has not necessarily changed, right? It shouldn't look the same way when my grandfather was here. It should have progressed. And I just being in community again, being at the tables, being around conversations that are grieving people or that are still, you know, bearing contractions of frustrations. And how can I step up? I show up for everything else. How can I step up for this? So it was just a natural thing for me to do to bring change, even if it was just to put the name Preston in the running, right? Even if it sends to carry off to all the others who have gone up before me. But you know, it's again how we show up in our community, changing that, supporting one another, creating change in everyday spaces, right? Not just showing up at City Hall, not every day, you know. Our lives are always seeking justice, you know, for the unjust. And mentorship, we talk about mentorship and advocacy and building relationships. I'm a relational person. So it's not just, hi, when I see you, how are you doing? What's going on with you now? You know, building those relationships. And community leadership is most powerful when it's rooted in lived experiences, right? So we can share, we can tell stories. We're storytellers. We're always telling stories. You know, I had an uncle who we just buried today. He was a storyteller, but he was a historian. He was always telling us these stories about, you know, things that we can digest to take in, but to run with that, right? So redefining leadership is just being authentic to who you are when you're in those positions. And not to be afraid to be who you are. We should not look like everybody else, right? We should bring our color, bring our voices, bring all of that, right? Because sometimes that's enough to have the attention that we need. There's respectful ways for us to do that, but just step up and respectfully represent. You know, we are always misrepresented. We're underrepresented. Be part of the person with the boots on the ground. Be in it with the people, right? Be in it with them. And that inspires voices to start raising. That inspires people to start having, you know, intelligent conversations, asking the right questions, right? So that's kind of how I would redefine it. You know, just stepping up in those places, mentoring, advocacy, building relationships, and not waiting for us to had a head-on collision in terms of, you know, now we got to deal with this thing. Let's start putting strategic systems in place for our communities that we represent.
I think that echoes a lot of what Damini said about listening to people, right? Like being, what you're saying about being in community, listening to what they have to say, knowing what's happening so that when we can be prepared if a crisis does break out, because we've always been in the space with each other. So Lily, my next question is for you. Talk to me about intergenerational support from older Black leaders. What does meaningful mentorship look like to you?
Yeah, I love all the questions, but I really love this one. I've been really privileged to have a lot of older Black women leaders that I can look up to. I've never been short of role models, which is amazing. Of course, my mom is the first person I thought of when I thought of this, has had many leadership roles and is always someone that I can look up to. And other people in this room, I was thinking, when I was reflecting on this question, I was thinking about Sylvia, I was thinking about Senator Dr. Wanda Thomas Bernard, and it's like, of course you're here. And even having this opportunity to be here tonight is because of you. So thinking about the opportunities that I've been given by those meaningful mentors and by women who have been supportive to me, that inspires me to try to take on these opportunities as much as I can, because I would love to do that for girls and for young women, and the further I go, the more I want to be able to give back in these ways that have been so impactful to me. And really that meaningful mentorship, reflecting on this, I was thinking about what's been meaningful to me is when I'm given opportunities like tonight, and it's when I feel empowered by support and by feeling that someone believes in what I can do and giving me the tools to go there on my own and see what I come up with and encouraging me to be critical. And all of these things have been so meaningful and impactful when I think of great mentors in my life, and I try to bring that to any opportunity I have to mentor, especially thinking about my field of science. I've done some mentoring with youth in science, and I really would love to continue to give back in this way because I've been really privileged to never have to look far to see women leading and being impactful. Yeah, thank you.
Something you said there resonated with me. Something one of y'all said earlier, the part about being critical, like having that courage. Maybe it was you, Shanae, just like knowing that you're just having the courage to stand up and say something. And I think seeing that modeled by other people is like, all right, if y'all can do it, I can do it, right? Like seeing is believing. So Shanae, back to you. The theme tonight is challenging racism. What does challenging racism look like in your day-to-day life, in community, spaces, workplaces, etc.?
Yeah. I'm going to refer to my notes on this one just because I want the message to be clear. So it looks like being intentional about where and how I show up. So it's actively seeking opportunities to make a difference, whether that's advocating for change in policies, reshaping conversations, or supporting others when they are navigating similar experiences. So when I think about my place of work, for example, as being a professional development consultant, looking at the content that was initially expected to be facilitated across the organization and not making room for diverse ways of being and knowing, that was something that I had to actively challenge. For instance, there's somewhere, it's big known, it's called Crucial Conversations, and there's a piece in there that talks about facts versus stories. And I had to challenge that because if something is consistently happening to you in a patterned way and you are sharing that story of that experience that you are feeling, is that not facts? So it was, difficult for me being in those spaces expecting to facilitate specific content, and it doesn't resonate with who I am, what I value, and what other people who look like me may experience. So again, it's pushing those systems to be more equitable. So seeking out opportunities where my voice can be valuable. So again, thinking about committees to be a part of when there is tough conversation or complex conversations that is having around policy design, I sign up to be a part of those so that I can ensure that the changes that are being considered are reflective of my community and especially the patients and families that are going to walk into this space. The other is I wanted to say is that challenging racism isn't always loud. Sometimes it's consistent, it's very purposeful, and it's smaller steps that you're taking and rooting yourself into being committed to taking something bigger. And that may start very small. So it's choosing not to let harmful comments or practices go unchecked. So thank you for that.
Give a little snap, snap. Right? It kind of goes back to that concept of call in or call out. If people don't know, you're going to get a little lesson. So a call out is getting on the internet and dragging somebody, right? It's like, I'm going to call you out for your behavior. A call in is maybe messaging somebody privately, calling them, emailing them and saying, hey, what you're doing is out of pocket and out of line. Let me call you in and let's talk about this. But the point is that you're calling, right? You're making the effort to call. And I think I feel like society has gotten uncomfortable with uncomfortable conversations. Mm-hmm. There's an incapacity for friction. People don't want to bump up into the space for discourse is starting to shrink and shrink. And if someone disagrees with you, then they're automatically your enemy. Mm-hmm. And we've got to create space where we can just dialogue about things and be like, your opinion's different than mine, and that's cool. And I'm not going to disrespect your humanity just because you don't agree with what I have to say, right? So. Mm-hmm. We check people. Okay. Just a reminder
we check people.
We do check people. Yeah. Reminder to our friends in the audience: we're going to be going to Q&A, not now, but soon. So if you have questions, start thinking about things you'd like to ask our lovely panel. So Nicole, my community pal, let's keep chatting about community. What does a community accountability look like to you?
Forgetting about this mic. Okay. For me, it's simple. It looks like care and responsibility hand in hand. It means showing up for one another, addressing harm when it happens. And that means noticing people, noticing if they're off, noticing what's, what the vibe is in the community. So addressing those, staying connected, staying committed to growth. It's not perfection, but it is about being willing to do the work together. I look in this room and there are women that I can call today and connect and ask for advice or bounce ideas or thoughts off and seek wisdom for direction as I reach back to other young ladies, right? Because I think a lot of the time society wants us to be silent, know your place. Women, almost like that saying when back in the day was children should be seen and not heard, like women should not be speaking up, and if they are, they should be respectful. But you know what? We're not the angry black woman. We are tired. We are fed up on some things. But anger is an emotion. It's not a definition of who we are. So we should be able to express that, but also using our voices effectively. So I always encourage young ladies to speak up. If something's happening to you or you feel that you have some passionate about, a particular topic or what's going on in your community, it's your community, you can speak up, or at least share it with someone. So community is about the care. It's about, again, I go back to being in it with the people and showing up, right? When I studied early childhood education, it says, if you want to teach a child, you should model and mentor that behavior so that also they can mimic the same thing. So we do the same thing with leadership, and we have a lot of great women leaders in our community, and some of them may be retired, but they're still leaders. So, yes.
I'm jotting down a secondary question of something you said. We're going to go off script for a minute, but y'all can handle this. So, just going back to what you said anger is an emotion, but not an expression of who you are. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, how are each of you, all of you, one of you, how do you challenge the trope, right? The angry black woman, the angry woman. Like, how are y'all challenging that? Because in order for us to call in and call out, for us to stand in community, for us to advocate for things that are right, we have to sometimes be assertive. So how are you delicately balancing that? Anyone can take the question. I know y'all.
Delicately, can you
Balancing
the
it.
trope?
And maybe the trope, the strong black woman trope,
Yeah.
right? The stereotype.
Yeah.
I
I
expect
mean,
you to
it's
come
an
and scream it.
active practice, I would say, for me, because I try to remind myself who's in these spaces, who's going to be affected by what I'm going to say. Is this going to be stereotyped towards me? I'm actively reflecting in my head and being mindful of that trope, especially when my reaction is justified. Like, I am justifiably upset, and I should be upset. But recognizing who's in this space, am I safe enough to say what needs to be said, or is this going to be used against me?
Right.
Or am I going to be stereotyped into being that aggressive, assertive, dominant, strong black woman? All of those pieces, they are actively something that I am intentionally working against in my mind.
In connection to that point as well, for me, one thing I also had to learn was knowing when to speak up and when to stay silent, and knowing like when there's opportunity where your voice will be heard or when it's going to fall on deaf ears. Because when it falls on deaf ears, you're only harming yourself because it's not being taken in.
No, I guess for me, it's just more like it forces me to take a pause for a second because, you either fall into what is you're being set up to do, is be angry. But I also don't want to walk away frustrated with myself for not using that moment as an educational moment or a speak up moment to correct some things. Because there's a way that we can do it, like a lady, respectfully and all that great stuff. But also to, bring people to the knowledge of knowing that, this stuff does still exist. Racism still exists. We feel it, we live it every day. And it may be silent for some people, but it's screaming at us always. Yeah.
That's great. I feel like I don't have anything more to add. This is amazing.
It's a bonus question. It's okay.
I guess it's just making me think that, yes, of course, you have to decide when you want to speak up, but to not make me forget that I care or make me forget that I should be angry about these things. And even if it means you have to come back to it later or come back to it in a different way or to different people, to not just lose that point or forget that I am angry about this and that's fine.
There's this great quote that I think about all the time, and it goes, is it worth the impact it will have on your nervous system, right? And that can go both ways. Is cussing this person out worth the impact, and it's not saying anything worth the impact? And we need to decide, right? Like, because we, to your point, Nicole, we're constantly being bombarded with racist and with oppressive systems. So we have to be toeing that line, like, is today the day I'm gonna be dysregulated, or is today the day I'm gonna choose peace? And if I choose peace, what do I lose? What does my community lose in that choice? Okay, Damini. So our families are from the same country, but of very different cultures. So in many African diasporic traditions, leadership is collective. And so how do you practice leadership rather than how do you practice collective leadership rather than individual leadership?
Yeah, I'd like to start off by saying, like, my parents, my mom and my dad, both modeled leadership for me, and I think that was mentioned as well. Having role models that model leadership is really important for shaping children or young people into seeing that, okay, yeah, I can be a leader, I can lead on this, I can create this. So they really shaped my perspective and views around leadership. Also, like, culturally, being Yoruba, different groups, and Nigerian. In our culture, we have a big reverence and respect for elders. And within that, we find community sitting down, listening to the elders speak, talk about their experiences. And in that way, they're giving wisdom that will help us be able to lead or go forward and change positively for society, in society. So I would say, for me, the way that I practice collective leadership would be through a principle that's really important to me: lift as you climb. I think it's really important to, when you have opportunities, to say, okay, yeah, my sisters, please come with me. Come to this event. You're interested in this? Please sign up. Go to this. I know you're, like, for example, I have a friend interested in photography and acting, and I was like, okay, there's this event coming up. You should go to this because it'd be good for you. Because sometimes I feel at times, because sometimes we have limited resources, we might hog an opportunity. But I think the way to lead is to open that up, because the more people who walk through that door, the more opportunity that the people coming next will have. So leave the door open.
Leave it open.
Yes, that scarcity mentality is tricky, and it's so colonial, yuck, right? Like this idea that there's not enough and we have to squirrel away these resources, which is not how our people do, right? We are very collective. We want everybody to be healthy and well. So I love that idea of inviting people in and asking them to take from that space. Another bonus question, so here it comes. Because I've been just thinking, I read all your bios, I know all of you. Talk to me about how you practice rest. Because rest is a big thing for me. Oh, see, now y'all gonna be thinking, because rest, right? Because, yeah, that's why this is a bonus question I didn't tell you first. Because I feel like, a couple things about rest. I feel like rest isn't marketed to us. Rest is marketed to skinny, white women. They got cucumbers on their eyes with a towel on their head, right? A towel that's gonna rip all my curls out, so I'm not even using that towel. And it's not for us, right? And if it is for us, you have to work. Grind culture, hustle, then rest, or whatever those disgusting slogans are. So I'm curious, like, how are you taking care of yourself? Because you can't pour from an empty cup. So how are you practicing rest? Ooh, look at that. I came with a bonus question.
I would say, okay, go ahead.
So I heard this recently, actually, from Mahogany O'Keefe, and she was talking about the importance of your network. So not necessarily the people that you work with or mentors, but your friends. So the people that you can lean on, that you can call for support, that you can debrief with, that you can vent to. I honestly, I can say I don't actively practice resting, but I definitely practice reflecting on moments and situations and calling on others to debrief whatever interaction or something that is causing me grief with, so that they can give me sound advice and a strategic direction. So one of my best friends, Melanie Cluett, she is African Nova Scotian, but she's also a therapist. And I lean on her quite a bit to gain a different perspective on something, and to also help me channel my energy where it needs to be. And then obviously a good therapy session too.
I mean, I need to know Melanie's contact information because,
So she's not my therapist,
That's
but
okay.
I do have one.
okay, because, you know, sidebar, finding a therapist, finding a black female therapist in this province
And
is
I
like,
got one for you, but
Right.
she's in New Brunswick.
that's okay, she probably does digital, because that's another thing about care, is like having someone to talk to who looks like you, who understands your lived experience, who understands your cultures, you know, having to explain the strong black woman trope to them, they're like, sis, I get it, let's keep talking, right?
In
So,
connection to that, actually, like you said, having somebody who understands your perspective or what you're going through, for me, that rest, when those experiences do happen, when I need someone to talk to, I go to my family, my community. That's where I'm able to like recharge, rejuvenate through my friends as well. And also learning how to say no to opportunities, because I'm still learning it, because I struggle with it, because I'm like, okay, I could help with this. It would be important to add my voice to this. Okay, people would benefit from this. But also knowing that, like you said, you can't give from an empty cup. So taking that time to recharge, but then also coming out and coming back to give.
That's the word I was looking for. I don't rest, I recharge.
recharge, okay.
I guess for me, and I'm learning this in the last few years, I've experienced loss in a way that I was not expecting loss to happen to me. But God reminds me, I listen to God and I do self-reflection. That rest is a spiritual principle. It's something that's already been built into our life plan. And choosing to do that is also choosing to do your self-care. So that's one for me, is really paying attention to that and heeding to that. Should I want a long life? And I do. Not only that, but I also have friends who also enjoy self-care. And it helps because you go with other folks. Again, we do this together, right? I want them around as long as I can have them, especially if you love each other. You look after each other.
Oh, your mic's off.
Check, there I am.
It's back.
But yeah, so self-care, you know, I'm learning about rest, but it is a principle, and, you know, I live my life according to those principles, so I want to be obedient with that. And you're getting older, and your body is also trying to tell you, you need to rest. So I schedule that time now. I enjoy that time. I like hanging with me too. I think I'm pretty cool, if I say so myself. But you learn about yourself in those spaces. And then when you are in these spaces, you can speak with confidence. You can speak, you know, with a big voice and say, hey, listen, I know this works. I've tried it, been there, done it. You know, I know the recipe. So for me, it's a spiritual principle to live by, and I have no problem doing it. Now, the only issue we have is people allowing you to do that, allowing you to rest. You know, I had someone call me just the other day and said, hey, Nicole, we need you for this. And I said, I kind of can't, right? And they were really trying to convince me. And I had to stand my ground. Like, you know, you guys know I would be there any other day, but today, no, right? And I felt the disappointment in them, in their voice, in me saying no, but I had to be okay with that, because I would have took it back. And we got to be okay with that. We got to be okay with saying no when we've already committed to saying yes to ourselves.
I'm loving these so insightful answers, and I can totally relate, like, as somebody who likes to be busy, to having a hard time. Am I getting feedback?
I think it's because those two mics.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's so peaceful now. Now we can rest. Yeah, saying no to opportunities is so tough, and like taking time for rest. To be honest, this is definitely something that I'm like very much still learning, because especially when you're young, it's like I need to do everything, and I have to take advantage of every opportunity, and it's kind of like that mindset, like you can't let anything go. Yes, so, and I think that is also important, because it does it does give to you as well. But again, you can't pour from an empty cup. So I've been really trying to take more time for self-reflection and to think, like, what do I actually want? What do I need right now? And then to listen to that, because I realized that was something that I was just not taking time for, is what do I actually want to do and what do I need? It's just, this is the thing and I'm going to do that, and then this is the next thing that I'm going to do on the list. So even just taking that time, like you say, for self-reflection, to just be in it with yourself is important in choosing to give yourself rest. And then when I do, it's amazing. And I said that I like to do creative things and things like baking, and I find that so peaceful. Yeah. So thank you. Great bonus question.
Did you bring any baked goods with you? Asking for a friend.
I should have been advertising.
So what I'm hearing in that answer is learning how to say no and boundaries. Right, boundaries. And I was having another conversation last month about rest, and I said we almost need a lexicon of ways to say no. Let me think about that. Let me get back to you. Not sure. Blah, 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 blah. So that when you're in those moments and you feel your nervous system activated, like, oh, I should say yes to this, you can go to your lexicon and be like, which one of these is a no I'm going to offer you? I give people a lot of maybes. You know what? Let me get back to you about that one, because it's a very non-committal. And then those 2 or 3 days that I've said, let me get back to you, I've been able to say no. I offer that to you. Also, you two, if you're young, listen, go ahead. Be out in those streets while your knees are nice and limber. While you can stay up past 10 o'clock. Do it for us. I have orthotics in my sneakers right now. Okay, so Lily, my darling, you have the honor of closing this out. So what does racial justice look like in Nova Scotia 10 years from now if young Black women are shaping the agenda?
I'm sure we'd all have great answers for everything, but this question I felt like we would all have like an amazing and completely different answer for, which I love. But I came to this from my background in science, and I was really thinking about it from the perspective like of research and, of course, achieving racial justice, like power in action. But I was really thinking about like the power of knowledge and reflecting on like my background in biology and health science. Women have been, and especially Black women, too long excluded from or even exploited for health research and excluded from equitable health care. And this is something that affects every day and every moment of people's lives, but we just don't even have the data for. Like, there are huge data and knowledge gaps that we just can't progress without knowing. Like, no one's even looked, and I can't believe that's true, and it's still true. So I think this really begins with being in every space, having young Black women be part of every field, be a part of research, be part of academia. And I'm thinking about health science, because obviously we all need health, and we should all know about our own bodies, and it's incredible that we don't have the research for that. So I think one of the best ways that we can be empowered is to be part of that research, and we can put funding towards knowing about this. We can come together in spaces like this where we can hear other people's perspectives, and with all of this knowledge, I think we can enact policy, we can put our own perspectives and other people's perspectives into every field, into research, and that can reduce things like racial bias that are holding us back. So I think all of these ways that we can be part of the conversation and be part of research and just give to each other, then that really gives back to the community, and that benefits everyone. That benefits Nova Scotia, that benefits the world, and that benefits everyone to achieve, health equity and racial justice in Nova Scotia. So I think in 10 years from now, I hope that we can be part of more of that research and be closing down on some of these literature and data gaps that I can't believe are still open.
Dr. Bernard would love that comment about policy, because last summer we had a policy class, and we all went into it, and we were very shook. We were like, policy seems stressful, and she's like, by the end of this semester, you are all going to love policy, and you're going to understand it. And by the end of that semester, we were like, policy is the word, like, this is everything.
I want to take that class.
You should. You really should, because, you know, policy is what sets the tone for everything that we do. And I think because it can be so, there's so much jargon and so much fluffy language in it
Yeah.
sometimes, it can be intimidating to us, but it is important to understand the policies that affect our lives.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, Lily, about the lack of data, as a health student, the lack of data on Black women is staggering. So please, if there is a survey that comes to you as a Black woman, fill out the survey. Answer the question, be part of the conversation, input your voice, because they don't research us, full
Yeah.
stop. There's no other nice way to say it, they just don't. So that's my TED Talk for all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to close out just the same way we started it, with a group question. So from Shanae to Lily, how do you challenge racism? Shanae.
Yeah, I think we all sort of alluded to it in all of our responses to every question, but for me, it's always been speaking up. So even when I'm uncomfortable, when there's a risk, you know, even thinking on all of my posts that I make, I'm being very strategic about what I'm saying, how I'm saying it, but also recognizing that there's a risk that comes with every post that I share. I'm in a public space where I have community in looking at me, but I also have my colleagues, my peers, my place of work. So I need to be strategic on what's being said, but sometimes things have to be said, because if I don't say it, who's gonna say it? And so I think about that even in the workplace. So if I'm part of a committee and we're trying to, look at a piece of language and how do we ensure that it's reflective of everybody's experience and taking that into account. And I recognize, that if we're not speaking to my community, and sometimes I have to go again back to my head and I'm battling back and forth, should I say something? Is this something that needs to be said? So again, it's really exercising my voice, but it's also, I'd say, sharpening my toolbox. And what I mean by that is seeking out different experiences, different perspectives that I think Damni had talked about, really listening intently to other people, because there's other experiences that I may not be a part of. So even thinking about the African Nova Scotian community, we are very individually unique. Although we have a distinct cultural identity, our experiences are vastly different, especially when you think about like a rural community versus an urban community, or a young person versus an old person, or the intersections that they come with as well. So I actively seek out opportunities where I can sharpen my toolbox to ensure that when I am at those tables, I'm thinking about all of those perspectives and how can my voice be exercised in that space.
Awesome, thank you. Damini, same question. How do you challenge racism?
Yeah, I would say the biggest medium I use is my poetry. That's mostly how I advocate, and through creative projects. And I would also say, like, entering spaces that are predominantly white and choosing to use my voice. I feel like that creates an impact, because sometimes people have never heard the perspective of a Black woman in that specific room ever, because it's been predominantly white. So taking the time to share that experience or share that perspective so that people know, okay, we've been missing out on this voice and we actually need it and it's important.
There's a lot of bravery in that as well.
I guess for me, challenging racism in my day-to-day life is both visible and invisible. Sometimes it's just, calling out harmful comments, which we talked about earlier, or the assumptions in real time. And other times it's choosing to protect my energy, finding ways to push change in that. But yeah, it's just always being mindful of where we are and who we're around. In school and workplaces, and I'll just refer to my notes for this, it means we're questioning systems that treat the unequal equal and not just like an afterthought. It means advocating for representation. It's, not just in numbers, but also those voices that are actually shaping the decisions. We talk about policy, speaking to those individuals so they can take back, and start making effective decisions that affect us. Community space, it looks like creating environments where Black people, especially young Black women, do not have to shrink themselves to belong. I hate that. I feel like it's a bully system that I'm fighting against with that, and empowering our young girls to use their voices or even to question. And also in small, consistent actions, amplifying others, educating, when you have the capacity to do that, and setting the boundaries, we talked about that, and refusing to normalize what is harmful. And challenging racism isn't just loud, it's persistent.
Like that, it's persistent.
So I was thinking about how I would add on to this, because we already have so many great answers. I think similarly, I feel like we've all been saying similar things, but like in our own way and with our own perspective and like own background, which is amazing. So definitely similar actually formula that I had, which is that in the everyday, like speaking out, or calling in, depending on what the moment may require. And I was also thinking about kind of like what I was just talking about on the last question. It's noticing those gaps in equity and striving to fill them in any way that we can. And that's like hearing people's perspectives. That's contributing to that research that acknowledges and how important intersectionality is. And it considers that in research, and that's in every field. So I think it's really important. I know I'm talking a lot about my background in science, but I think people feel like science is just objective, and it's like, well, that's the fact, and that's all we have, and it's just so not true, and there's still bias there. So even in the small ways of doing that research and acknowledging intersectionality in it as being real is like, well, that's new. So it can be in those small moments, and it can be in the everyday conversations.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lily. And it goes back to a couple things people have said. Sinead, you were talking about the stories, and like, is something a story, or is it fact? If I keep saying it is my experience, it now becomes fact.
Yeah.
And I was listening
Lived
to
experience is fact.
100% lived experience.
It's data. It's insight.
Exactly.
And it helps us translate and improve.
Right. And it often can be the root of a cause. Right? So Lily, I think about your research. If someone is talking about an experience they keep having, and that experience is now making them sick, like, we can't ignore that narrative.
It's real.
Exactly.
It's real, right? Just because you only want to study the microbe or the physical part of it doesn't negate that their experience is contributing to what's happening to them.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I like that a lot. I love all of this. This is so fun. We should all just kiki after this. And I think for me, challenging racism is about creating spaces for people to take care of themselves. So rest is a big one for me. I'm big on rest. I love a no. Oh, I love saying no to things. My friends are like, so you're gonna come out? I'm like, girl, I'm not coming to that. I know, I didn't. It's harder to say no to Savannah. I really like Savannah. So, but
I
it's,
tried to say no too.
yeah, yeah. And she told me he was speaking, and I was like, all right, I'll be there. But it's like, creating spaces where Black women can take care of themselves, right? Where you can literally take your wig off if you need to. You can wrap your hair up. Yeah, I said it. You can wrap your hair up. You can be in your slippers and your pajamas, and you can rest with other Black women. And you can be in a protected cocoon of space. That is how I'm challenging racism, is always thinking about how are we resting? How are we feeding into ourselves so that we can stay healthy?
Rest is resistance.
Baby. Trisha Hershey said it best. I'm going to pass it over to our audience. Are there any questions from the audience? Know that I have more bonus questions, so don't feel like you need to. But, yes. Can you come a little bit closer to us, my friend?
Sure. My name is Ifo Ikede. I am Isoko from the Niger Delta. The British told us that our land was called Nigeria, but they never actually asked us what our land was called. So I don't recognize it, except during the World Cup, of course. I've had the misfortune of being a computer scientist and engineering in school. And so I had a question about, as a reflection of, how do we prepare our youth, and also for people who are just moving into this country, how to prepare folks in the workplace about the hostility that they will often experience when we call out and when we call in. And I've noticed that the leadership, both in education when I was in school, and also in the workplace, because that's my full-time job as a computer scientist, and also in community, tend to be downright hostile towards any ideas around when you challenge the anti-blackness of their policies and their practices. And sometimes they don't mention diversity or inclusion at all, or even worse, they actually mention it. And they have beautiful sounding policies and procedures. But then when you're actually in the institution, your experience is like the opposite of what these institutions are claiming to stand for. And then, you had all these institutions say Black Lives Matter, but then they didn't fundamentally change anything about what they did, apart from painting something somewhere. So it's like, how do we prepare people to deal with those realities without also scaring them away from just like, nah, I'm not going to do science or tech or anything, because we need to be there, but we also need to be safe while we're there. It's just a reflection I had as you guys were speaking. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Any takers? Yes, Nicole. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I guess simply for me, it's just by sharing and being honest, sharing the truth. Give them mindful tools to use when they are facing racism or dealing with racism. Come tell the village, do not stand alone. Because you can not hide, but you can stand behind some other strong leaders who also have the experience to deal with that. So come tell the village. Also, there is power in numbers. We've seen that in the recent cuts with government and how our voices came together and was able to kind of recoup some of that decision-making back. So that's something recent we can share with the youth because they also took their stand. Some of the high schools took a walk, and so we can use the recent things to share with them. If they don't understand days of old, but we can bring them into now and encourage them to use a voice to stand up for racism in that moment, but come back and tell the village.
I also think it's a lot of what you all said about being true to who you are, right? If somebody sees a role model embodying, standing up in a space, being in that space, being confident, being authentic, it gives them the permission to do that as well. But I think we also need to keep it real and educate them about what they're about to go into. Let's not sugarcoat it. This is going to be a racist place. You're going to experience one of the isms, so just be prepared for that. Let's not pretend. We're not in fairyland. Fairy tale. That's what
I mean, and that goes to say, we know who we are. We're Black people, right? And if you're raising Black children or any children, this is what they're going to face. And so, I would hate to say, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me that this was going to happen? So you prepare them. Maybe give it to them in doses, but you prepare them so that they are ready and not standing there, not knowing what to do, which could bring more harm to them. So yeah, be honest, open conversations, sit at the dinner table and just have conversations. That might be hard to do because of, where we are with gaming and everything like that, but we got to find ways to connect with our youth.
No, sir, come on now. You got to come and use the microphone. You're not going to hide back there, Dorico. Yeah.
So I have two questions. I'm just going to ask them both at once and then go sit down. But my name's Dorico Simons. So first question is, knowing the things you know now about yourself, career, leadership, and society, what advice would you give your 10-year-old self? And then the second question is, how can Black women elders continue to and/or more effectively connect with and support the younger generation, and what changes or improvements could strengthen that relationship?
Wait, can you repeat?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, of course. So how can Black women elders continue to and/or more effectively connect with and support the younger generation?
Connect.
And what changes or improvements could strengthen that relationship?
I'm not taking my husband's question.
Connect to the younger generation.
Okay, did y'all catch that? 'Cause I'm writing it down. Does anyone want to? I'm also curious to hear what our elders have to say. Is that?
Yeah.
Do any of our elders feel comfortable answering the question? I'm getting silence from the elders. I will respect my elders. Yes, okay. So let's start with the first question. Knowing what you know, what advice would you give to your 10-year-old self? And Lily, I'm going to start with you. 'Cause
Okay.
you've been going last, so let's have you go first.
Okay,
Do you also need a moment? Because you had the think head going on. Like,
It's giving me less time to reflect, but maybe that's fine. I'll just speak what I'm thinking. I think that the advice that I would give my 10-year-old self, I think I was always someone who liked to talk a lot. So I would just encourage myself not to lose that, because sometimes we were talking about how you need to know when you should speak up and maybe when you should save it, but to not lose that and forget that I should. So I think thinking back to when I was 10, just encouraging that, because I wouldn't be where I am now, even literally in this seat, if I couldn't do that. So that's just what came to mind.
who would like to go next?
So a couple things come to mind when I think about giving myself some advice. Two of them. So the first one is, I feel like I had some type of identity crisis at some point in time in my younger self, being a visibly lighter skinned Black woman, and not always knowing which aspects of me to bring in certain spaces, or if I should be in certain spaces, or if I should be that voice. And so I would tell myself that it is okay, and you should use your voice. I also think that I have been a pretty dominant, strong, kind of vocal person. And there has been moments in my career or as growing up where I've minimized aspects of that. But I think that now that I'm older, I've stepped fully into that voice. So I would tell my younger self that it's okay to be who you are, and who you are is great, and who you are is enough, and to continue using that voice, even when others don't want you to.
Okay, Nicole, it's all you.
To my 10-year-old self, I would totally say to her, be bold, be strong, be beautiful, it's okay. And don't let anyone or thing dull your shine. And it's okay to be sparkly, it's okay to be twinkly, it's okay to be all those things. And not fit into somebody else's idea of who you are. You're created with purpose and reason and it's okay to discover that. I used to hide, so that's what I would say to her, is to be bold and run with it, just like Forrest Gump did. Run, run, run.
For me, I would say, it just came to me now, because I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to say anything. Let me just listen. But you are enough. I think that was one big thing that my mom kept trying to instill in me, because I feel like when you are a Black girl growing up in Nova Scotia and you're the only Black girl in the school, oftentimes you know yourself at home because your parents tell you who you are.
Yeah.
But when you go to school, like upholding that and holding that identity strong and knowing that this is me is often really hard. So I think you are enough, and don't dim your creativity and your energy for those around you who don't understand.
I'm going to answer this too, because my 10-year-old self was going through a lot at 10. Had a lot of family things go down, but I would, like, to your point, I would say, tell my 10-year-old self, these people don't know anything, right? Like, haters are going to hate. Because
Tell them haters are
haters are going to hate, because I remember we moved to a predominantly white community, and I was like, oh, this is different.
Yeah.
This is really different, and feeling like I had to squeeze myself in, but it's like, look at us now, y'all. We're on stage or on this panel, so like, don't worry about those people. Like, you just do you and stay true to what your family and your community pours into you, because this outside nonsense isn't it. Now, does anyone want to tackle part 2 of this
What was the
question?
question again?
Okay.
Something about
How can black women elders more effectively support the younger generation? And what does, my handwriting is messy. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, what something are impressions, do you help me?
The first part is right.
I nailed
The
it.
second part is what changes or
Changes.
could strengthen that relationship.
Changes. Okay, I'll read it again. How can black elders more effectively support the younger generation, and what changes or improvements could strengthen that relationship?
I'm just going to simply say, check on them. You know, like call them. Like, you know, my grandmother says sometimes, y'all don't be calling me enough. I'm thinking, well, you can call us too, right? So check in on them. Ask them how their day is doing. You might be surprised that they actually might open up. And I think, you know, I have a teenager living with me now, and yeah, God is good. But I ask them, how's your day? Simple questions, right? And I think if the elders do that with us, you know, the simple questions, sometimes it help us to kind of, you know, answer back. Because I think a lot of times we sit with our thoughts, and if we do say something to them, we might be disappointing them. But I think if we can have real conversation and open that space up for conversation, we can learn a lot about them, and they can learn about us.
Pass you that torch so confidently.
Thank you.
You're next.
That's just making me think about asking questions, and just for the value of having it be an opportunity for you to reflect for yourself. Like sometimes when people ask you questions, like just literally sitting here right now, it's like, oh, I hadn't really thought about it in that way, and now I'm getting the benefit of reflecting as well as the benefit of conversation. And I think just continuing to have opportunities like this, like that's something that I talked about that was so important to me, and for like just to be sitting here right now and have an opportunity like this to have such great dialogue. And I've learned so much already from these lovely women sitting on this panel with me, and just continuing to give like space like this to speak from our own perspectives is like so valuable.
So a couple things, again, kind of come to mind when I think about it. The first one, I would say, is build trusting and sustainable relationships with your youth. And I think that I have benefited from that. I mean, those women most of them are in this space right now. So, you know, Dr. Wanda Thomas Bernard, for example, really supported me in my journey into getting into social work. And I've continued my relationship with her, and I've been graduated since 2013, I think. Again, Kaysa Monroe Anderson, she was the one who had given me my first job outside of schooling and continued to nurture and build and support me in every endeavor that I've done. Sylvia Parrish Drummond, my girl, I call her my mom, my work mom, who is somebody I still continuously turn to for support, debriefing, venting, talking. She's genuinely interested, you know, in my life, and we've continued our relationship long after my employment under her. And the other thing that comes to mind is allowing them to lead. And this is best modeled by Sylvia, who had trusted every idea, every thought, everything I wanted to do, essentially. And she really believed in me and let me take the torch and to lead my own ideas. And I thought, you know, that is something that I talk about all of the time, and I see how that has benefited me to be in a position to be on a panel and talk about my experiences to help pave the way for the next generation. So if anything, I would hope that every elder is continuing to build and sustain the relationships with the younger people that they are working with and remaining connected with them after maybe their problem or whatever it is that what barrier it is that they have in front of them at that moment, and continuing after that barrier has been broken down.
Can I reach
Sorry.
Oh, no, Demi, you're going to answer this question,
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
back?
Actually, let me be kind and inclusive. You don't have to answer the question if you don't want to.
I just want to say thank you to like all the elders in the room, Your Honor, Mayan Francis, Sylvia Paris, Dr. Susie Brigham. They've been big parts of my journey that I can speak to for sure, and it's also an honor to be on this panel as well with such amazing women, and I've really enjoyed listening to all your perspectives. I think that's all I'm going to say.
I too would like to say thank you to Sylvia, to Mom Mayan, to Senator Wanda Bernard, and to all of the other leaders. We have business leaders, we have creative leaders back there, we have a whole panel of people sitting up here with leaders. What I will share is that with the elders that are in the room, because one of them showed up for me today specifically, we started on politics. It's me calling her for a question, and I think I did the same thing for Senator Wanda Bernard, but in church perhaps. Just simple questions, advice, wisdom, right? And then over time, the relationship grows, and it becomes beyond politics. It becomes personal. It becomes strengthening. It becomes, the seeds that they put into us now we're reaping the harvest and the benefits of that. So I don't want to sit here and not say anything to acknowledge that, because then we will be remiss to say thank you to each and every one of you who continue to show up for us, to continue to support us and love us like daughters. So thank you.
I'm just going to add one thing to that. I think we need to be intentional about creating spaces where we can dialogue with each other. I think it can be easy for us to get into our lives and get into our habits, but having these kind of community conversations, just to chat, right? Just as to your point, check in on them and ask them how they're doing. I think we need to foster more spaces where we can dialogue with our youth and with our elders, because we're all in a little bit of the in-between. Some of us are more youthful than others. So creating those really intentional spaces. So my friends, that is the end of our panel conversation. Big thank you, big thank you to our panelists for your time tonight. It's been so fun and so cool, and I have so many more questions for all of you after, but Sylvia, I will pass the mic back to you. But I put your other mic away, so you got to use this one.
Just stand beside you. Feel the vibe. I am very moved by the conversations that we've had, Janae. Thank you. There's so many gems. I can't, what is it? What would the cool people say? I can't wait to watch it on the replay. Because there is so many gems that I've heard. I was trying to take down some notes on things, and Monica, thank you for also going with the flow and really bringing it, enlivening it, right? For sure. So thank you all so much. Thank you, of course, all to the panelists. In terms of your thoughtfulness in prepping for this time and the recognition of each other. You were just modeling the stuff right there, right? Give props to people or each other in the presence. It's okay to acknowledge ourselves in spaces where we're doing and we're leading and holding up things. So thank you again. For the folks in the audience, maybe I'll invite one more round of applause, as we say. And also, I don't know where to look for the camera, but for wherever we're online, I know you folks have had a great experience in terms of as well. So I'm going to invite these folks to stay just while I finish kind of other closing remarks. Mm-hmm. And could you move us to the next slide? Because there is an evaluation, and we have a QR code that will take you to that. And we would really, it is, as I think people are used to hearing when there's an evaluation, it is really important for us to hear that so that we can continue to grow and strengthen the programs. We've heard the first name mentioned, Savannah. So I want to mention the project lead for this Together We Rise work that we're doing in Savannah Provo. Who's been helping us do this work and has been virtual and that support in it. So somewhere you're going to see this on the replay too. So Savannah, thank you so much. I also want to acknowledge the steering committee. I made a bit mention of that earlier. So it's Dr. Maki Matapoyan, the Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard, is he here? And myself, who are currently, Sylvia Paris-Drummond, I don't know if I ever said my name, who are currently on this planning work. I also want to show us to show appreciation for our caterers, Opus Catering, fabulous food. You know, you may be able to stop by there and get something to take away with you. And again, you know, to the folks online, it was yummy. Thank you to the Black Cultural Center of Nova Scotia for also partnering with us in this work. And of course, for everyone, as I said, it's time. You choose to spend your time in places, and I'm glad that you chose to spend your time here with us, either in person and or online. Yeah, so I hope I haven't missed anything in thank yous. Yes. Yes. Senator Bernard, would you like to any other further comment? Yes, please. We do need you to take the mic. Thank you.
This was so amazing, honestly, and to see my former students and the daughter of one of my students. It had been around for a while. This really was good, though. And I was jotting down some words as you were speaking, and so I wanted to share those. Courage, community, mentorship, calling in, calling out, having the uncomfortable conversations, being intentional to be effective. Racism is screaming at us every day, but we find a way to work through it, to work beyond it, and to model for the next generation. Lift as you lead. And if you've received an email from me on my iPhone, you know that that's my tagline. Lift as you lead. We have so many data and knowledge gaps. And so at the end of this, I'm leaving here thinking, we're in good hands for the future. And yeah, someone ought to clap for that. Because, you know, the future's not promised to us, of course, we know that. But as we prepare for the future and we prepare the next generation, we need you to do what you're doing, to continue. But this has also been a reminder that we need to continue to lift you up as well. And so we do that, but sometimes we do it silently. Yes. So one of the things I'm taking from tonight is to be a bit more intentional about mentoring the next generation. So thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, that's a wrap. Those in the room, I think the food is, I'm sorry. Oh, yep. We can bring the microphone to you. Yes, I'm quick. The sneakers on? Huh? I have sneakers on.
Well, as an old woman, I like to just stand here. Anyway, I want to thank you very much for everything that you presented about, and it was very interesting because as I am now a very senior woman, way up here, and I was born and raised in Whitney Pier, Cape Breton. You're supposed to say, oh, isn't that wonderful? Anyway, but actually, you know, growing up as a woman, as a young child, growing up in a pier was a little bit different than a lot of things you were saying because everybody in Whitney Pier came from all over the world, and they were from different backgrounds, everything. So we all had, I guess, strictness in terms of how we are to behave. as young girls or young men or whatever. So, but it was interesting, and I've had a great life, so I can't complain about that, because my daddy was a clergy, so that was very strict, and Mommy was strict as anything. So anyway, it was all good. But I truly loved everything you said. And I said, my gosh, if I was this young going up with this, I don't know. But anyway, I didn't go through all of everything that you're saying. And I just want you to still stay strong. Don't hesitate. Just realize you all are great, okay? That's what we all are about. And just keep that in your mind. And if you're close to God, He'll always be with you, because I was always moved by my God, and that was always my strength and my courage, and still is, even I'm way, way up there. But anyway, it's all good. So again, thank you very, very much. Totally enjoyed everything you said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's an official wrap. People online, whoa. People online, have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful evening. Happy spring, everyone. I know it's going to be a snowstorm on Monday, but it is officially spring. So happy spring, and that's it. Thanks so much.
Thank